Hi.
Hi there. This is Lou and John. Again, these little videos called Bottled Wisdom. This little set are reflecting to some of the comments that you've given. So again, the comments are really useful because we hear how you'd like some help, and we then kind of schedule them in. So now this is called Childhood Issues ? John's a behaviourist in terms of therapy, and I'm a counsellor, and I deal a lot with...
Mainly a behaviourist.
Yeah, mainly, yes.
Not solely a behaviourist.
I'm so sorry.
It's quite all right. I don't like being pigeonholed.
No, she doesn't. He doesn't. I should have known that there was wounding there, but
just a little. Yeah, but never mind. Okay, carry on.
Yeah. So anyway, so obviously I know that childhood issues affect who we are, the way we see the world, the way that we respond. I deal with it all the time.
Yep.
And I have to say that with me and my drinker, I mean, if you'd been a fly on the wall as a therapist, you'd have had a field day with your clipboard, because actually the more we got involved with tussles, the more my husband's issues would come to the surface. And then I had some stuff that abandonment and abuse. And so in the end, my unhealed child, you could see that, that person was out. And really, so when this happens between you, one of the tragedies of the dance of, the partner and the alcoholic is the fact that it exposes all the wounds and the pain, not just of the now, but of the past. And so that is really hard. And I have to say, if that's happening in you, it is a really good time to actually have some counselling, have some therapy. Because if you can work on those issues, you will be more solid in your ground in terms of being able to cope what's happening in the here and now. So it could be a blessing in disguise if it takes you to someone and say, I need help with this. And obviously therapy can help, because I work with people. But it's not as simple as that with the drinking, is it?
No, it's not. It's not simple with a drinker, because what you have very often is a child in a grown-up body.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a theory, and whether it's true or not, it certainly seems to be. There certainly seems to be a lot of evidence for it. Whether there's been any research done on it, I'm not aware of any, but certainly it is a theory, and that's for alcoholics, they tend to not regress, but they tend to not progress. They don't mature.
Okay, right.
Once they start drinking, then, one of the ways we tend to mature is because we work through issues.
Yeah.
And as we work through the issues, then then a bit more maturity comes, and we can handle things that bit better. But if the way you handle things is to jump into a bottle, then you don't actually handle it very well. And therefore, once you start drinking, then these issues are so near the surface that they come spilling out. But what I need to say here is, that was it my childhood that caused me to drink? Who knows? Was it because of disappointments? Possibly. I can't rule them out, and I certainly wouldn't rule them out. But what I can say is that there's lots of people who have been through exactly the same sort of childhood as I have, and don't drink. So
it's a form of avoidance, isn't it, really? It's a form of, instead of confronting what's going on, you anaesthetise and avoid the pain. I mean, I have to say I did this for a few years when I was taking a lot of dope and drugs. Instead of the pain, I used to think, oh, blow this and I'm going to roll a joint. And so, when I stopped, I recognised that I was still 16. I was very aware of that.
I mean, psychologists would suggest, that if there's a trauma, then you can have two reactions to it. One is that you can actually get deeply into the trauma, and it affects you, and the other one is what they call a reaction formation, which is actually you grow out of that trauma. You develop this carapace, this shell round about you, which and drinkers, they don't. They get deeply into it, and when they're talking, when they're drunk, You know, it's often near the surface. There's a self-pity and a whining sometimes with drinkers. And I can say that because that was me. I was that drinker.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah,
Recently. Okay, now.
But we have to also, you know, when we look at this, we have to say, you know, there's an explanation and there's a reason. And they're not necessarily the same thing.
Okay, explain that.
Okay, then.
Explain your reason for that comment.
My reason for that comment is supposed to be illumination, but you know that might not be. What I'm saying here is that we can explain somebody's drinking by childhood trauma.
Yeah.
We can explain it and say, okay, yeah, that's an explanation for it. Is it a reason for it? No, it's not a reason for it. Yeah. The reason for it is exactly what I said a minute ago. You know, that two people with exactly the same, you know, events can turn out completely different, you know? So there is something else there, you know?
I have to say with my husband, he knows when he started drinking, and that's what he had, a stammer. And then when he started going down the pub, he found the stammer went.
Yeah.
So that was the reason for him drinking, because it actually gave him a kind of Dutch courage.
No, that was the explanation.
Yes, that was the explanation,
Excuse, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at me, there was a lot of disappointment in my life. You know, I trained to be a priest till I was 16, and then that came to an end for various reasons, and then it felt as if my life was over. Everything I had sort of put myself in. I know 16 sounds ridiculous, but you know, I often hear this thing when around AA, and there's an old film called On the Waterfront, and it was Marlon Brando, and he comes out with this phrase, you know, and you heard it in AA all the time. I could have been a contender, you know, and he was a boxer whose boxing life had been cut short, you know, and it was what I could have been, you know, and it was always this what I could have been. It was, you know, it was the sort of ambition taken away, you know, that dream was taken away, and I can point back to that and say, look, that's the explanation for it, but it wasn't the reason for it. The reason I used it as an excuse.
Okay.
And that's the reason, you know, explanation and excuse, they're all different things.
And you're also saying it became a justification.
Oh, absolutely became a justification. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It was the excuse.
So the explanation becomes the justification.
It excused my drinking as far as I was concerned.
Sure. Now, okay then, so that you now have a conundrum, don't you?
Yeah.
The chicken or the egg, because you can say, get help for your childhood issues, and then it'll help you to stop drinking, but that doesn't really work terribly well, does it? Now, why is that?
It doesn't work. It doesn't work at all, because it's a bit like, you know, trying to get fit, lying in a bed anaesthetised, you know, and somebody kind of moving your legs and things like that. It doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. You know, it might keep your legs moving, but you don't get fit with it. If you try to get sober, if you're trying to resolve issues, then you need to resolve them sort of sober, with a clear head. Yeah. Because otherwise you're back in the bottle again, and you won't resolve it at all. You know, because your brain gets fuddled, your brain gets anaesthetised, and you're not facing the issue. As we said before, you know, the way you mature is you actually go through issues, problems, you know, and you get strength from that.
So, and also, I mean, I know that when you first start working on an issue, if anything, the pain for a while can feel more intense. Yeah. You know, so that then would prompt the drinker to go back into avoiding the pain. So it would be lovely, but what John is saying is it rarely works. Now, you might be somebody out there can say it does, and there's always an exception to the rule, but generally, you know, you need to be sober. But then there will come a point where addressing some of the things that drove the drinking would be really important and helpful, yes?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is very important to do that, you know, and you're not going to stay sober if you don't address these issues, you know, because they're always there. They're always there to trip you up. You know?
So I think just observation over many years, we're saying that really therapy isn't really tenable if the person is still drinking. Even if they're sober for a while, it may push them back into the syndrome of drinking. So really work on the sobriety, but then be aware that childhood issues will be part of recovery.
Yeah. I mean, you can't divorce childhood issues, and even still, even when we sort of get into arguments now, we can still hear some of the wounding coming up. You go, oh right, okay, that's what that's about.
Yeah.
Why is that a flashpoint? It's a flashpoint because of my childhood, or it's a flashpoint because of your childhood. So they are there, but we address them.
And remember, you can. If your husband's still drinking, you can still get some help for yourself and actually make sure that your pain is being resolved from the past so that you can enter into really bringing all the energy you've got into figuring out what to do in this circumstance. Okay, thank you for listening. I think anything else you want to
not really, no.
add there? Okay.
Otherwise, it would end up an awful long video.
Yes. Again, there's no way we can cover this subject in any sense. We're just giving kind of little kind of thoughts on things, and do comment back, and also we will absolutely reinforce stuff. We'll say stuff if we say it, and you've heard it before. Listen to it again, because some of this stuff needs to go in and be reinforced over and over again.
And often we're saying it in a slightly different way, which some people get, whereas they didn't get it the other way,
Yes. Okay then, thank you for listening. Join us again for all these videos. We love you listening, and we love you talking back.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.